I am Bedford, a 35-year-old businessman who found success despite growing up as the less favored child in my wealthy family. My childhood seemed comfortable on the surface with all the material things anyone could want. But beneath that polished exterior lay a painful truth I would only discover later in life. It came during an accidental moment when I overheard my parents talking about me in our family home. I learned I was nothing but their backup son kept around only for what my money could do for them. Before I tell you how I discovered my parents' true feelings about me, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I turned this betrayal into the greatest victory of my life. My early life unfolded in an affluent suburb of Boston, where our family owned a beautiful estate spanning 5 acres of prime land. This property had been passed down through generations of my family, a symbol of our prominence and success in the community. Our 2-story colonial home with its perfectly manicured gardens was the venue for important social gatherings and business meetings. My parents were not just wealthy, they were influential figures whose opinions mattered in both social and business circles. From my earliest memories, I understood my position in the family hierarchy. My older brother Jackson was the golden child. 3 years, my senior Jackson seemed to excel effortlessly at everything he attempted. He was captain of the football team, class president, and prom king. With his perfect smile and natural charisma, he won over teachers, coaches, and our parents without trying. When Jackson walked into a room, my parents beamed with pride, their eyes following his every move. I existed in his shadow. While I was not neglected in terms of material needs, the emotional distance was palpable. At my piano recitals, my mother would check her watch repeatedly, but they would sit through hours of Jackson sports games cheering enthusiastically. When I brought home straight, as my father would nod briefly before asking when Jackson would be home from practice. My achievements were acknowledged with a distracted pat on the head while Jackson received celebrations for even minor accomplishments. Despite this disparity, I continued striving for their approval. Each academic year, I pushed myself harder, joining debate club, taking advanced placement classes, and volunteering at local charities. I hoped that eventually something would click, and they would look at me with the same pride they showed Jackson. By 16, I had accepted that traditional paths would not win me the recognition I craved. I began teaching myself about investing, spending hours at the public library reading financial magazines and books. I saved money from odd jobs and birthday gifts to buy my first stocks. While my parents attended Jackson football games, I monitored market trends and taught myself about business models. During college at Boston University, while studying finance, I launched my first small business, a website development company that catered to local businesses. I worked between classes, often late into the night. By graduation, my company was turning a modest profit, and I had built a respectable investment portfolio. I graduated summa cum laude, though my parents spent most of my graduation ceremony talking about Jackson's recent law school acceptance. The dynamics in our family shifted subtly as my financial success grew over the next decade. By 30, I had expanded my business into a digital marketing agency with clients across the East Coast. My investment portfolio had grown substantially, and I had purchased my own condominium in downtown Boston. Suddenly, my parents started showing interest in my business ventures. The frequency of their calls increased. Invitations to family functions came with pointed questions about my company valuation and investment strategies. My father, who rarely asked about my life before now, wanted detailed explanations of my business model. My mother began introducing me to her friends with comments like, "I always knew Bedford would make something of himself. He is so useful with financial matters." These attention crumbs felt like validation after years of emotional starvation. I interpreted their newfound interest as hard-won recognition of my worth. When they mentioned family business opportunities that needed investment, I eagerly participated, hoping to finally cement my place in the family. That spring, I closed my biggest deal yet, a contract with a national retail chain that would double my company revenue. Excited to share this achievement, I decided to surprise my parents with an unannounced visit to the family estate for Thanksgiving weekend. After years of striving, I believed I was finally earning my place in the family hierarchy. Jackson was bringing his new girlfriend, and for once I felt I had equally exciting news to share. Perhaps now, with tangible success to my name, they would finally see me clearly. I drove to the family estate with hope filling my chest, rehearsing how I would announce my big news at Thanksgiving dinner. After all these years, I thought they would finally be proud of me for who I was, not just as Jackson's younger brother. I could not have imagined how completely wrong I was. The Thanksgiving weekend started pleasantly enough. I arrived Thursday morning, greeted by my mother with her usual polite hug, and my father with his firm handshake. The house smelled of roasting turkey and pumpkin pie, just as it always had during holidays. Jackson had not yet arrived with his girlfriend, giving me a rare opportunity to have my parents' attention. My mother asked about my drive from Boston, while my father poured me a glass of his expensive whiskey, a small gesture that felt meaningful at the time. They seemed genuinely interested as I told them about my new client and the growth of my company. My father even clapped me on the shoulder and said, "That is good business sense, son." Throughout the day, I felt a warm glow of acceptance I had craved my entire life. That night, after a substantial Thanksgiving dinner where my parents listened to my business stories with apparent interest, I went to bed feeling more connected to my family than I had in years. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up thirsty. The guest room was warm, and the turkey had left me parched. I slipped out of bed and headed downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I approached the bottom of the stairs, I heard voices coming from my father's study. The door was slightly ajar, a strip of light spilling into the darkened hallway. I recognized my parents' voices speaking in low tones that instantly made me slow my pace. Something in their hushed urgency made me pause outside the door. "Our backup son is finally proving useful," my father said with a chuckle that sent an immediate chill through me. "I know," my mother replied. I was beginning to think having a second child was a complete waste. Thank goodness he has a head for money, even if he lacks Jackson's charisma and leadership qualities. I stood frozen, my hand gripping the banister. "Backup son." The words echoed in my mind as my father continued. "Remember how worried we were when Jackson had that skateboarding accident at 14? I thought our legacy was in jeopardy. That is when I realized how smart we were to have Bedford as insurance. Always plan for contingencies, Richard," my mother said in a self-congratulatory tone. "Though we are lucky Jackson turned out so perfectly. Bedford is functional, but he is not the kind of son who can truly carry on the family name with distinction." My legs felt weak beneath me as my mother continued. "Do you think we can get him to invest in the Westlake property development? The banks are giving us trouble with additional financing, but with Bedford money we could move forward without diluting our ownership." "He is eager for approval," my father said in a calculating tone I had never heard before. "Just drop a few compliments, mention family legacy, and he will write the check. He has been desperate for our attention his whole life." It is actually quite pitiful. Their laughter mingled together as I stood there, my world collapsing. The glass of water forgotten, I silently retreated up the stairs, each step heavier than the last. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed trying to process what I had just heard. Backup son. Insurance policy. Useful only for my money. In the darkness of that guest room, memories flooded back with new context. The sudden interest in my business, after years of indifference. The family investment opportunities that always seemed to materialize when my company had a particularly good quarter. The way my financial advice was sought, but my personal achievements ignored. Morning came after a sleepless night of recalibrating every family interaction through this devastating new lens. I discovered they had been borrowing from my business without my knowledge, using my name and credit for family expenses and manipulating me into investing in failing family ventures that primarily benefited them. The company account statements I accessed remotely showed unauthorized transfers bearing my electronic signature forged through access they must have gained to my personal devices during previous visits. At breakfast, I maintained a facade of normalcy while observing my parents with new awareness. They performed their roles perfectly, my mother asking about my plans for Christmas, my father inquiring about my latest investments. Jackson arrived mid-morning with his girlfriend, a kind woman named Sophie, who seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. Throughout the day, I noticed something unexpected. Jackson, the The golden child himself seemed trapped in his role. When he mentioned wanting to leave his corporate law position to teach my parents smoothly, redirected the conversation. When he failed to recite some family business figures to my father's satisfaction, I caught the flash of disappointment that crossed my brother's face. Was he as much a prisoner of their expectations as I had been, just in a different cage? That evening, as we played cards in the living room, Jackson pulled me aside. "You okay, Bedford? You seem distant today." His concern seemed genuine, catching me off guard. "Just tired from work," I replied. "I get it," he said. "Sometimes I wonder if anything I do will ever be enough for them." The unexpected vulnerability from my perfect brother nearly broke my carefully maintained composure. For the first time, I wondered if Jackson and I might have more in common than I had ever realized. Back in Boston, I immediately contacted my attorney, Michael Ramos, a shrewd litigator I had befriended in college. After explaining the situation, I authorized him to investigate the full extent of my parents' financial exploitation. The findings were worse than I imagined. My investments had been quietly keeping the family business afloat for years. The prestigious family estate was mortgaged to the hilt, with 3 liens against it. My parents had secretly borrowed against my business credit line to fund their lavish lifestyle while the family companies floundered under mismanagement. They had even established shell accounts in my name to funnel money into their personal expenses. "What are my options?" I asked Michael after reviewing the devastating report. "You could pursue criminal charges for the identity theft and financial fraud," he said. "At minimum, you need to separate your finances completely and recoup what you can." For 2 weeks, I methodically planned my next move, gathering documentation and securing my assets. Once everything was in place, I called my parents and requested a family dinner at their home, claiming I had important news to share. The following Saturday, I arrived at the family estate with a briefcase full of documents and a heart hardened by betrayal. Jackson was there too, having been summoned by our parents, who likely expected an announcement about a new investment opportunity. We sat around the formal dining table, the same one where I had sought approval my entire childhood. Crystal glasses reflected the chandelier light as my mother served her famous roast beef. My father opened an expensive bottle of wine, making a show of serving me first. "So Bedford," my father said, leaning forward with interest that now seemed so obviously manufactured. "What is this exciting news you wanted to share?" I took a sip of water, set down the glass, and looked directly into his eyes. "I know what you think of me." "Excuse me," he said, his expression faltering slightly. "I heard you and Mom talking Thanksgiving night," I continued calmly. "I heard you call me your backup son, your insurance policy. I know about the unauthorized loans, the forged signatures, the shell accounts. I know everything." The color drained from my mother's face. Jackson looked between us, confusion evident in his expression. "I do not know what you think you heard," my father began, his authoritative tone slipping into place like a familiar coat. "But you have clearly misunderstood." I opened my briefcase and began laying documents on the table. Bank statements, transfer records, loan applications with forged signatures, email printouts discussing how to best extract money from my business. "I misunderstood none of this," I said. "You have stolen from me. You have lied to me. You have used me my entire life. Now see here," my father's voice rose, anger replacing his initial shock. "Everything we did was for this family. You have obligations to the family name." My mother tried a different approach, tears filling her eyes. "Bedford, darling, we love you. We have always wanted what is best for you and the family. Surely you cannot believe we would deliberately hurt you." Her performance was flawless, but it no longer affected me. I had seen behind the curtain. Jackson picked up one of the documents, his lawyer eyes scanning the contents. His face hardened as he read. "Is this true?" he asked our parents. "Did you really take out loans in Bedford's name without his knowledge?" The family discussion quickly devolved into chaos. My father threatened to disinherit me. Extended family members who lived nearby were called over, taking sides in the escalating conflict. Some cousins defended my parents, citing family loyalty above all. My mother tearfully accused me of fabricating evidence out of jealousy toward Jackson. Through it all, I maintained a calm I did not know I possessed. When everyone had exhausted their arguments and accusations, I stood up. I am cutting all ties with this family effective immediately, I announced. My lawyers will be in touch regarding repayment of the stolen funds. I suggest you comply fully to avoid criminal charges. You cannot walk away from your family obligations, my father thundered. This land, this legacy, everything we built is your responsibility too. I looked around at the beautiful home that had never felt like mine. No, it is not, I replied. I never had a real place here. I was just your contingency plan. That evening, I walked out of my childhood home for what I believed would be the last time. Within a week, I had moved across the country to Seattle, as far from Boston as I could reasonably go while remaining in the continental United States. I blocked my parents' numbers, email addresses, and social media accounts. I instructed my employees to direct any communication attempts from my family to my attorneys. Over the next few months, I rebuilt my life. I purchased a modest house overlooking Puget Sound and established a new office for my business. The legal battle with my parents dragged on, but I remained resolute in my separation from them. 6 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected call from my attorney. Bedford, there is something you should know. Your parents' company is bankrupt. The family estate is being foreclosed by the bank. I felt nothing but a dull ache where pain should have been. What happens to the land, I asked, thinking of the 5 acres that had been in my family for generations. It will be auctioned off to satisfy creditors, he explained. Given your familial connection, you could potentially place a bid before the public auction. The idea took root immediately. The land that represented all my childhood pain could become something entirely new. Through careful negotiations with the bank, I successfully acquired the property my family had lost. Not out of sentimentality, but because I suddenly saw a clear vision for its future. 5 years have passed since I purchased the family estate. Where once stood a symbol of exclusivity and pretension, I've created something meaningful. Working with local architects and environmental consultants, I developed an eco-friendly community on the 5-acre property. The main house has been converted into a community center offering classes and resources for local families. The surrounding land now contains affordable housing units built with sustainable materials and powered by renewable energy. Each morning I walk the property and watch as people build lives in this space that once represented my greatest pain. Children play in the community garden where my mother once hosted exclusive garden parties. Young entrepreneurs work in the co-working space, established in what was once my father's imposing study. The transformation was not immediate, nor was my healing. The first year after cutting ties with my family was incredibly difficult. I sought therapy to process the betrayal and rebuild my sense of self-worth. The counselor helped me understand that my value was never dependent on my parents' validation, a lesson that took months to truly internalize. During the second year of my new life, I received an unexpected email from Jackson. He had finally stood up to our parents and broken free from their controlling influence. He had quit corporate law and taken a teaching position at a public interest law clinic. His message was simple. I understand now. I am sorry I did not see it sooner. Our reconciliation was slow and careful. We met on neutral ground in Chicago, halfway between his new life in New York and mine in Seattle. Over dinner, we shared our parallel experiences of growing up under our parents' manipulative influence, each trapped in different types of cages. Jackson revealed the immense pressure he had always felt as the chosen one, the crushing weight of never being allowed to fail or choose his own path. "Can you ever forgive me for not protecting you?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "There is nothing to forgive," I told him truthfully. We were both children, shaped by forces beyond our control. In time, Jackson became a regular visitor to the community I had built on our former family land. He established a free legal clinic in the community center, helping residents with housing issues and employment contracts. Working alongside my brother to create something positive has been healing in ways I never anticipated. Our parents have made multiple attempts to re-establish contact. After their financial downfall, they moved into a small apartment in a middle-class neighborhood, a dramatic change from their previous lifestyle. They have sent letters expressing regret, made phone calls to mutual acquaintances pleading their case, and even showed up unannounced at my Seattle office once. I have maintained firm boundaries. While I have chosen forgiveness for my own peace of mind, I cannot allow them back into my life. Their apologies always circle back to what I could do for them, revealing that even in their diminished circumstances, they see me primarily as a resource, not a son. The most unexpected part of my journey has been finding love. I met Amanda at a sustainable building conference in Portland. As an environmental engineer, she consulted on the renewable energy systems for my community project. Unlike my parents who only valued what I could provide, Amanda sees me clearly and values me for who I am, not what I can do for her. We married last spring in a small ceremony on the property, surrounded by community members who have become like family to me. Jackson was my best man. As Amanda and I prepare to welcome our first child next month, I find myself reflecting on the nature of family and legacy. The legacy my parents were so concerned about protecting turned out to be nothing but appearances and social standing. The true legacy I hope to leave is one of healing and community. The pain they caused has been transformed into something beautiful that serves others. As I walk this land that once symbolized my rejection but now represents hope for dozens of families, I wonder what painful inheritance in your life could be transformed into something meaningful. How might your deepest wounds become sources of healing for others? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more about turning pain into purpose. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that family is about love, not obligation or utility. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes our greatest victories come after our most painful betrayals.